Hi, welcome to Future Fast. And like always, we have a very interesting guest today. And before I bring him to the conversation, thank you so much for your encouragement in terms of feedback that you share with us for Future Fast. And more of you can actually do that too. We do get few, but we can always do it more. And I know that most of you are consuming Future Fast and really appreciate it, but we sincerely appreciate a lot more if you actually subscribe to it because download to subscription ratio is there's a huge gap. So really appreciate if you are supporting us, you do subscribe to it because you do get updates on great conversations that we bring to you. And please do share the conversation. And once again, enjoy this conversation. And today we have Marc Krisjanous. He's from New Zealand, and he's a cyber security expert and also cryptocurrency security expert and a standards auditor as well. So what he does, how he does, we will obviously discuss through, but we're going to start with his journey. So Marc, welcome to Future Fast, and thank you so much for making time to be here with me.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So Marc, can we start with your journey? Can you share your journey to become a cyber currency auditor?
I started off in the IT space as a developer. So I was a software developer, mainly in C++ and Java. And before that, I was actually a chef in the Navy, in New Zealand Navy. And what I found is that my friends were in IT and they were earning much more than me, and they were working normal hours, and I was getting quite jealous. So I thought, well, maybe I should get into this IT thing. So I had to buy a dummies guide to computers because I never really looked at a computer. So I bought a dummies guide.
Which year was that?
Oh, that was going back 2000 maybe. Okay. Yeah, around about 2000. And so I trained myself.
So you were a trained chef.
Yes, yeah.
In New Zealand Navy.
Yeah, I was in the New Zealand Navy, and then I got out and worked in a couple of fine dining restaurants in New Zealand.
Okay.
And then I went to Japan, and I cooked Western food in a Japanese restaurant in Ichiko Yuzawa, which is kind of like a big ski field area in Japan.
And you learned Japanese as well?
No, that was too hard. That was too hard. You got to a stage where you could understand what they were saying, and you had little bits and pieces, conversational bits, but never the full Monty in terms of Japanese language. So I started on the dummies guide to computers, and so I learned how to turn a computer on, how to do basic stuff. And then what I did is in my days off, I worked for free at an IT company, a developer company, and because my days off was Monday and Tuesday, so I worked at the organization for free. And then over a period of about a year, I decided to leave the Navy, and they offered me a job as a junior developer. And so that's what I did. I basically left my chefing career and started off as a junior developer, and I learnt C++, and then I got into Java, and I learnt Java via Lotus Notes, which very old program, and I believe some people are still using it, but yeah, Lotus Notes was quite an interesting beast, and that taught me Java. But then I got interested in security, and I slowly got into information security, and I ended up managing a SOC, which is a Security Operations Center, managing a SOC of a team of people for critical infrastructure in New Zealand. So I basically just monitor this critical infrastructure for any type of intrusions. And so I got into that, and I stayed there for quite a while. But then I got tired of managing people, and I thought I was quite interested because obviously with the SOC you got audited, right? So there was auditors that came in, and I was quite interested in what they were doing, the auditors. And I basically then got into a job where I became a QSA, which is a qualified security assessor, QSA, for PCI DSS. PCI DSS is the information security standard that the credit card schemes created to protect the security of credit cards, because obviously there were so many hacks that credit card information was being exploited, and the card brands were really suffering because of it. So they created this information security standard to protect credit cards, and they call it PCI DSS. And I became what they call an assessor. It's basically an auditor, and that's my current one of my current auditing standards. So I'm a QSA. So even now, I still assess systems to make sure that they're looking after customers' credit cards properly. So we'll go in and we'll assess banks, we'll assess large retail organizations, any business that takes customers' credit card information should be compliant in this standard. And so that's quite an interesting job. But then I got into crypto around about 2019, got interested in it. Got interested in the whole thing about basically helping the unbanked people around the world be able to actually transact value, transact money and so forth. So I like the whole idea of Bitcoin. And through that, I got interested in investing some of my money into crypto, some...
what are the legal compliance on the crypto investments, legal status in New Zealand?
It is regulated. It's regulated by the Department of Internal Affairs. It's not that big, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a lot of innovation in New Zealand in what they call, the Web3 space. So there's a lot of innovators here, and it is regulated. But most of the time, you'll see people just go off overseas to the larger decentralized platforms and so forth. That's where I got interested in the security around cryptocurrency systems. And I was actually quite horrified because around about in the 2020, 2021, 2022, there was so much massive amounts of people's money going into cryptocurrency, right? That people were just pouring all their money into these platforms. And then there was these things called rug pulls. I was trying to work out what a rug pull was. And then there was, you'd find out that there would be a cryptocurrency platform that had just been created out of thin air, and people were pouring millions of dollars US into these platforms. And then the next day they got hacked and everything was gone. And I was thinking to myself, surely, when you're dealing with people's money, it should be regulated, just like the banks are. In the stock market, everything's highly regulated in what they say, the legacy finance world. But I was horrified to find out that there was nothing. Like if you put your money into a cryptocurrency platform or a DeFi platform and it got hacked, you lost your money and that was it. And it was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe that something like this could exist. And so I started looking around for, well, surely there's an information security standard for cryptocurrency. And I found one called CryptoCurrency Security Standard, CCSS. And I was quite interested in it and it looked really good. And so I contacted the organization that looks after the standard, C4. And I just said to them, well, I'm really keen. You mentioned that you could become an auditor in CCSS. And they said, oh, yeah, we're still working on the auditor's program. And I thought, well, I can help you create the auditor's program because I've been an auditor for quite some time by then. I audited under PCI DSS, so I pretty much knew what the auditor's program would need to be done. And C4 said, yeah, cool, go for it. And so I worked on that, and this is all a non-profit organization, so it's all volunteers. So I volunteered a lot of my time to build the auditor's program up for CCSS. And we got it online in 2022. and you could sit an exam and become an auditor. And that was great. And I became the first auditor. What they call a CCSSA. So there's a lot of acronyms, but it's just a CCSS auditor. And when I got certified, I was lucky enough that there were two companies who were really keen to become CCSS certified, and that was Fireblocks and Liminal. So both of them are huge wallet infrastructure providers around the world. Liminal comes out of India, but they're obviously quite global now. And Fireblocks comes out of Israel, and they're quite enormous. So I audited those two companies, and they became CCSS certified, the first two companies in the world to become CCS certified. So, and that's where I am today. So I audit under PCI DSS, and I audit under CCSS. So
Yep.
that's me. That's me currently.
Do you see any similarity in being a chef to a security auditor?
Not really, but I do see a massive similarity between a developer and a
Okay.
chef,
That'd
because
be interesting. Please go ahead.
yeah, because a chef has a recipe. And,
Okay.
in the old days, you used to have when you're coding, you used to have your variables at the very top, your variables, and then you have your functions underneath. And a recipe is like that. You have your ingredients, and then you have what you're supposed to be doing with those ingredients. And so
Right.
when you follow a recipe, it's in the old, the old coding languages, right? That was pretty much it. You had the variables at the top, and then you had your functions underneath. And it was quite easy for me to move into that way of thinking. And, you have to be, especially if you're baking things like pastries and cakes, you have to be quite exacting with your measurements, right? And you need to incorporate the ingredients at the right time. And it's like that with coding as well. You need to use the correct variables in order to produce something. And, so there's inputs and then there's outputs. So I found it quite easy.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I remember chatting with somebody who was telling me that the similarity with being a chef and uh, uh, in the technology space would be more close would be to about working on writing an algorithm for an AI system. So I was like,
Oh,
okay. so
yeah, yeah,
he was giving me pretty much a very similar explanation as what you did. Uh,
yeah.
so
It's actually, I had three friends who were chefs, and they
okay,
all went into IT. It was just because it was paying a lot of money. You had sociable hours, you didn't have those horrendous split shifts and stuff. And yeah, there was some other friends that got into IT as well, and they're still in IT today. So it's quite exciting.
and no regrets for
No,
moving into
no,
IT. It's better money, is that?
no.
But you
I think
probably still enjoy cooking for yourself.
well, no, it's that old adage, like if you want decent plumbing in your house, don't marry a plumber, right? Because they're not gonna do their job while they're trying to rest at home, right? So my wife probably she does the more of the cooking than I do. I still dabble once in a while, but yeah, I don't cook as much as I used to. Um, I'm more enjoying my wife's cooking than anything else.
Sure. And I have few friends who are not chefs, obviously, but they cook once in a while because they say that they enjoy doing it. So, are
Yeah.
you that kind of a person who cook because it's? I think what they say is stress relieving. Is that really so for you?
Yeah, I mean it's quite there's certain dishes that I like doing. Um, like making your own pasta or a lot of stews I quite like. But yeah, it is stressful. It is good stress relief. It's a good break. I always laugh because when you're actually in hospitality, when you're a chef in a restaurant, and there's lots of orders coming in, and there's a huge adrenaline rush when you're cooking. and it's very team orientated as well, because obviously, if you order a dish, it might be 3 cooks involved in assembling that dish, right? So there was a lot of team focus and a lot of excitement when you're young about having a team that actually produced something like this, right? And the restaurant was well known, and it was, highly recognized and so forth, and you were quite proud of being involved in that. I do think in a lot of those high pressure areas of chefing and that, it's a young person's game, especially with some of the stress that you have involved in actually trying to produce and produce consistently really good food. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Somebody who wants to be a chef watching this will probably think maybe I should not be going into this. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
guess it's more a personal choice today. I think uh, 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 I think I've met people. In fact, one of them actually wanted to be a chef, and which is actually doing well because he wanted to become a chef because it also gave him opportunity to travel around the world. That
oh
was
yes.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and he actually did, because I do know people who have always been in one location, but this fellow actually went about traveling to different continents. So,
Well, that's the interesting thing, because the reason why a lot of New Zealanders joined the military, such as the Navy, is that your qualification was London City and Guilds. So it was an internationally recognized qualification as a chef. And at the time I went into the Navy, the London City and Guilds, the only place you could get it was in the military. So, because what they found, the New Zealand hospitality industry, the training industry, what they found is that as soon as the chefs got London City and Guilds, they went overseas because it was recognized around the world, right? So they trained in New Zealand, got their London City and Guilds certifications, and then they went off to like London or Paris to work in the big, the famous restaurants. And so they got rid of it, and they put this certification in that was only recognised in New Zealand and possibly Australia, which upset a lot of people. And so the military got in a lot more chefs because they still kept offering the London City and Guilds. And it's always a little bit harder to get out of the military than it is just to, qualify outside of the military, get a job, and then you start looking for a job overseas. In the military, it's a little bit longer process to actually get out. Plus, there's other exciting things, like you go see the world, right, in the military, and the military pays for it. So in the Navy, we went all over the world, and it was quite exciting when you're quite young, to go and visit all these exotic places. So that's the reason why I actually joined the Navy, is because of the London City and Guilds and the fact that it would give me an international certification. And so I could go to like London and work in some of the Michelin-starred restaurants and so forth.
well, today, even in India, there are very few people, somebody who was probably a chef and moved into tech space and even to be a security, let alone auditor, security analyst would be a tough thing. Here, your starting point becomes so critical in everything that you do. Though it is changing, but it is not to that extent. So something that you could do it in 2000 is still a bit tough in 2023 here in India.
Yeah. The other thing too is you
24.
normally you have different careers throughout your life, right? You might have 3 completely different careers through your life. So it was just a natural progression. I was chefing for over 10 years in my 20s, and that's when I basically went off to had enough of it. And when I came back from Japan, I had enough of chefing. So that's when I started looking around, and found out my friends were earning all this money, and they were doing, it sounded like I was working harder than them, longer hours, harder work, sweating all the time, cutting my fingers with my knives, and all types of things like that. And it just sounded really quite appealing to go over to IT. So I haven't looked back.
Oh, we've kind of had that gold rush for IT around the same time, around 2000. In fact, I think people studied anything, but everybody pretty much got into IT. So I think that was the time it was globally. So
Mm,
uh,
mm.
and probably it was possible also at the time. In fact, just before 2000. In fact, I remember a lot of them got into IT because Y2K was such a big problem.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
and it demanded a lot of people because obviously we didn't have the system or AI was
Mm.
not there to do. In fact, possibly whatever thousands of people did for Y2K, AI could have done in minutes, and that's a lot fewer people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But that actually took in a lot of folks there, and after that, yes, I mean, bigger money and a better money compared to any other job. So that was a time. I think maybe sometime around 97.
Mm.
96, 97 is when that kind of gold rush started here in India. So a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people got into it. And then it sustained post 2000. Of course, dot-com bust happened. I think you remember the dot-com
Mm.
bust. So in
Yeah.
fact, I have gone through my own journey of that dot-com bust. I had a big dot-com, $1 million worth,
Mm.
and then the collapse of value. And I've gone through that part of the journey too. So Uh, so,
Yeah.
uh, so, Mark, today with this, chef to programmer to security auditor, and that too in the crypto
Yeah.
currency space, which is nice because, see, personally, I do believe that this needs to get into the compliance space because that's the only way we can keep a lot of frauds out. And also, I do believe there's a huge value to be derived out of this.
Mm.
So if we don't bring in proper compliance, then it'll always be, uh, a play for the wild, and
Yeah.
the real true value will get lost. So we really need to bring in better security and better compliance into it. So we do have some bit of a situation in India in terms of government not being as open in terms of its applications or utility. I mean, it does recognize cryptocurrency as a tool for investment here. And
Mm.
that's it. And with that, there's a tax of nearly 30%
Yeah.
on that. So, and that is effectively pushing a lot of businesses who are in this space to go out of India. So, a
Mm.
lot of operations are still happening out of India, but the entities have relocated to other places because, one, even to attract funding. Because, see, if I get a $1 million funding for my venture, and today, the Web3 space, a lot of them even give funding in tokens. So if I end up receiving $1 million worth tokens, I to convert it to rupees via dollar directly, either ways,
Yeah.
I will be compelled to pay 30% tax. So the investment of 1 million will become 700,000 for me.
That's
So
quite painful.
yeah, it's so that's what is pushing a lot of people away. So how is that part of the situation in New Zealand? How was the government looks at it? Is there a tax? If so, what kind of a tax? What kind of a system do they have there?
I mean, they've just basically incorporated crypto into your standard investment vehicle. So
Okay.
the New Zealand government's very supportive of crypto, the Web3 space. And
Mhm.
there's a department in the New Zealand government which actually promotes innovation.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they're promoting is Web3. So this is why there's a lot of innovation being nurtured in New Zealand, especially around the Web3 space. And I belong to a couple of communities of these Web3 innovators, and providing, if there's any requests for information on information security around Web3 space, then, I provide it. Uh, but no, the New Zealand government's very, very keen to innovate and to become known as a world leader in the space. Um, there's no restrictions or penalties involved in organizations. I mean, the banks, obviously there's some issues with the banks about organizations getting into the Web3 space, but that's slowly being less and less now, I feel.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but no, there's no negativity or restrictions.
Okay. See, in fact, quite a few regions within UAE, right? Each of those
Mm.
state countries, right? Abu Dhabi, Dubai, REK, each of them are competing with each other to attract
Yeah,
Web3 businesses to them. So they're even giving a lot of SOPs, and some of them are even uh, uh, claiming to offer investment opportunities,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
and likewise, it is in many other places. Even Saudi Arabia has committed a huge fund to invite startups. So, is there something like that in New Zealand as well?
No, no, not really. I mean, most of the investment I would believe would come from overseas. So a lot of the innovators in Web3 space in New Zealand would go to the international markets and the VCs and so forth. I mean, there is investment in New Zealand, but New Zealand's a very small country. It's only 5 million people. And, we're going for a cost of living crisis right now. So there's a lot of belt tightening and so forth. So the New Zealand businesses have to go overseas. But that's generally the case everywhere in any sector in New Zealand is if you want to make it big in the world, you definitely have to go overseas. And this is why New Zealand tries to innovate and become a world leader in innovation in certain areas. And there is a focus on Web3 to innovate as well. The
So,
the
what
interesting
countries do New Zealand Web3 businesses look at? Because, see, like from India, so one is obviously people go look at UAE, Dubai, Abu
yeah,
Dhabi, and RAC and such, and otherwise Singapore. So people who
yes,
don't prefer as much compliance, because Singapore is very strict on compliance, they tend to
yeah,
move to Dubai. But people who are a little more globally focused, they actually look at registering entity out of Mauritius. People who are looking at a very loose structure and want to be in DeFi ecosystem, they tend to go even to the tax havens. So, so what is New Zealand Web3 companies' preferred target?
well, they definitely do the same as
Okay,
businesses in India. They go for the same things. One thing I found quite interesting is that the credit card companies like Visa and Mastercard are heavily involved in blockchain
correct.
because I believe they see the opportunity to slice a little bit of margin off these transactions, right? So if you can
Mm-hmm.
use your cryptocurrency for a credit card, then obviously the transaction fees are going to be rewarded with transaction fees, and I think that's where partnering with credit card companies like Visa and Mastercard. There is a company in New Zealand that's partnered with, I believe, Visa
Mm-hmm.
to offer some kind of rails or payment rails for cryptocurrency, but using the credit card. And
Mm-hmm.
so Visa's supporting them in that. But that support is international for Visa and Mastercard. They're quite innovative, and they see that blockchain slash Web3 is not going away. It's just going to
Mm-hmm.
get stronger and stronger, and they just want a piece of the pie. Just
Mm-hmm.
like Abu Dhabi, global market, Dubai, Singapore and Hong Kong, they all want a piece of this new market because I suppose there's the incumbents in the what they call the legacy finance world, where you've
Mm-hmm.
got America, the US dollar, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got London, another major financial hub. And
Mm-hmm.
this cryptocurrency and Web3 space is giving other countries an opportunity now to become known as the world finance centers for crypto, because once you become established, like London becomes a world finance center, it's very hard to get rid of that, right? They're like an incumbent for decades, for hundreds of years. So cryptocurrency gives other countries an opportunity to become finance hubs in themselves, and I think that's where a lot of these other countries are really trying to get to that level of esteem, that they're the financial capital of the world for cryptocurrency. I think that's where they're doing that, and at the same time they recognize that regulation is quite important, because one of the things I find that's quite concerning is that when it really, with the last bull market, you had loads of people who really didn't understand crypto get into the market. They on ramped, they bought, all this crypto with their money, and then they went into the platforms and they poured their crypto, their assets into these platforms, they got rug pulled or hacked, and they're wondering, well, where's the accountability? I put all my money into this platform. I don't know who owns the platform. I don't know what international body I can go to claim and get a refund or some kind of compensation. There's nothing like that. And I think a lot of the general population around the world went into crypto in the last bull market thinking it's going to be as well regulated as legacy finance. It's like if a stockbroker or some kind of financial institution rips you off, you've got places to go to seek compensation, right, and accountability. And
Right.
I think a lot of people just went into this space thinking that this is how it works here as well. Like, for example, when you create a wallet, you have a seed phrase, right? You never give your seed phrase to anyone. But when people went into this space, they thought, well, if I lose my seed phrase, I'll ring someone up and they'll reset it for me, just like I can reset my password on my bank account.
Correct.
It's the same type of mentality. And they think, well, why can't I access my wallet anymore? Yeah, I've lost my passphrase, but can't you reset it? And this is where, a lot of damage has been done with the general population. And even then, you've got these people who went into these platforms and went into Discord and Telegram and Signal for the platform's help, thinking it was a legitimate help center and it was run by the business, but in fact, it was a community help with a whole bunch of scammers in it. And the first thing they do, when someone comes in and says, oh, how do I actually put money or my funds into this platform? The first 10 people who would contact them would be scammers saying, oh, we'll help you do that. We're the administrator of the platform. Just give us your private key, or your, and then bingo.
Well, Mark, I actually want to delve deeper into the scam part in our second part of the conversation. So that's why I thought I'll just stop that part of the conversation here. So before we conclude from a journey point of view, just wanted to ask you, how do you keep yourself updated and relevant in the security sense, and who are the institutions or organizations, the people that you follow to keep yourself updated in what's happening and the security space, including in the crypto investment security side?
Yeah, well, I mean, the interesting thing about cryptocurrency world and blockchain world is it's based on cryptography. It's based on encryption, and that is not new, and it's part of PCI DSS. So when we assess under the PCI DSS, the credit card security standard, there's a huge bunch of requirements around protecting card data. And most of the time you use encryption. And so we keep up with encryption technology, threat vectors, new scams, new attack vectors for encryption. We keep up through that via our PCI DSS information sources. And then it's easily transposed onto cryptocurrency, because at the end of the day, you generally have a private key and a public key, and you need to implement good key management. So a lot of the good key management practices are actually already been established from way back. As soon as encryption was used in banking and finance and protecting information. So a lot of that information is still highly relevant in the Web3 space. Cryptography hasn't extended that much that good key management practices have been changed. Always look after your private key, make sure it's secure, make sure you do backups, make sure you use a very strong algorithm to encrypt. Just stuff like that. It's easily brought from the legacy finance world or the legacy IT area through to Web3. Nothing's changed. So all information sources are pretty much the same as any other information security sector. It's just transposed. The interesting thing is that there's obviously unique attack vectors in
But
crypto.
I see an opportunity here. Like what you're saying is much of this fraud is happening from a social engineering point of view, a behavioral aspects, right?
Mm,
But today we have the tech capable to address that aspect as well, so that
yeah.
even tech can manage the gaps from the behavioral aspect. So,
Yeah.
so that is something which the previous whatever the security option, it demanded a behavior change from the
Mm,
consumer. I think going forward, I think we can uh, bring about the security aspect from the tech itself without enforcing a change in the consumer behavior, because that was the habit, right? But with
mm.
AI, like today, people want to work on educating AI to be more human versus preparing people to work with AI,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
people talk about how do we get trained, how do we handle, what is the right command. It should be the other way. I think we will get to a point where AI is trained to be more human and how to work with humans.
Mm,
So, so I think that is a part I see in the blockchain technology security. That is going to be the significant shift of approach to cybersecurity with blockchain versus the legacy fintech security world. What's
mm.
your take on that?
Well, I think right now it's still incredibly complex, Web3.
Mm,
I mean, setting
mm,
up a wallet, try, try the average user who sets up a bank account in 30 minutes and ask them to set up a MetaMask wallet in a web browser. It's the complexity needs to seriously be hidden from the end user who's not interested in private, public key cryptography or encryption protocols. A lot of this technology complexity is still expected that the end user from legacy world still has to learn, and they're not interested. I mean, you don't go to a bank and work out what standards they're compliant with, whether they are regulated by this jurisdiction or they're regulated by that jurisdiction, and what's their security protocols about international transfers. When you go to
mm,
a bank, you don't care about that. And
mm,
so
mm,
I think a lot with the Web3 world, a lot of the passionate people that are involved in it, they tend to think that the end user coming over here should be aware of all this type of stuff, like
mm, mm,
the cryptography and protecting your seed phrase,
mm,
and learning how to the messages that come up like a MetaMask when you try and do a transaction. All these strange messages that come up with all
mm,
these
mm,
huge long web wallet addresses, and that should all be hidden. And
mm,
that exposed complexity is where people get really confused and they just want it over and done with. And that's where the security lapse is,
correct, correct.
because it's so complex. People just keep clicking the button. They don't care what the message is saying because they don't understand it. That's where the security falls down.
Correct.
The,
Mark,
the other
what books or podcasts would you recommend to our audience and listeners from keeping themselves better informed on the security side? On the
I think it's moving so fast. There's obviously podcasts, but I tell you where I get most of my bleeding edge news from is LinkedIn or Reddit.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I
okay.
on LinkedIn especially. I follow a lot of the industry leaders in crypto,
Mm-hmm,
or who are deemed industry leaders, and so
mm-hmm,
I get a lot of first-hand information off them. Um, because it's so fast moving. There's a lot of information out there, and I tend to think that people who post on LinkedIn have they think about what they're posting first, because in LinkedIn everyone knows who you are. You
correct.
can't hide, and so people are a little bit more cautious in terms of what information they present on LinkedIn. So there's not so much false information or garbage out there, right? It's more filtered and more considered. So
Mm-hmm,
LinkedIn, and Interesting enough, I actually I get a lot of quite really good research information from a person called Molly White. She's actually anti-crypto. She's anti-Web3. She
Okay.
doesn't, she doesn't believe in it. But her research is incredible on crypto. So I actually learned quite a lot about what's going on, what's the latest advancements, who's doing something naughty, what have you, by following Molly White. And she provides a newsletter that is absolutely exceptional in terms of research information. Very, very good writer. And so, you know, you don't have to follow the passionate people that are pro all the time. If you get a more balanced view, if you actually look at information and research that is actually against what you believe is, you know, cryptocurrency Web3 is going to lead the world, so to speak. You always should look at the people that are actually criticizing it or finding faults.
Absolutely right. And particularly if you are in the space of security, you might as well find people who are, shooting holes in it.
Yeah.
So that's a better way to learn.
Molly does. And
Right.
you know, she's well known. She's presented around the world. I highly recommend to follow Molly, just to gain a perspective that's outside the passionate world of Web3, and you know everything's going to be changed to crypto and so forth. But definitely LinkedIn. I do get quite a lot of good information from LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, to all the audience and listeners, in fact, Mark's LinkedIn link is also right below this podcast. So do follow him. He also keeps commenting, posting his own views and analysis, and sometimes criticism also of other opinions and views. So which is surely educative. So it's a great link to follow and a person to follow as well. So do share this with those who you think will appreciate it, and also come back soon because we're going to dive deeper into what kind of scams that are happening in the crypto space, and what could possibly be the early markers if we can pick up, and how do we secure our own digital and crypto assets, as you know, more and more of us are getting into real world assets getting digitized. So it's only better that we get better informed, and also particularly for entrepreneurs and businesses who are in the Web3 space, do share with them if you're not one, and if you know some, that this is a conversation they should be looking into. And till we catch up again, enjoy the ride. Mark, once again, thank you so much for sharing your journey and perspective. And we got to get onto the deeper in the next conversation. But thank you so much for sharing your journey here.
No problem. It was very enjoyable.